Hey guys, I just want to let you know before we get into this episode that we've partnered with Band Builder Academy. Band Builder Academy is the #1 place to grow your music career. Run by top label manager and Sony Vice President Todd McCarthy, so you know it's worth it. Enter promo code CONCERTS at checkout to receive 10% off membership.
Hi, this is Floris from Atomic Drive, and you're listening to Concerts That Made Us.
Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, Concerts That Made Us. Interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and the cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us. Concertsthatmadeus.com.
On this episode, I'm joined by Floris from Atomic Drive, a fantastic South African rock band I know you're going to love. This is an incredibly fun episode where we chat about their latest release, Wires, which was released on the 4th of November, the history of the band, music in general, and much, much more. So, without further ado, let's get on with the show. Floris, you're very welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be talking to you tonight.
It is. I'm looking forward to diving into your music now and hearing all about it. So we opened the show with your latest release, Wires. It was released on the 4th of November. Would you like to tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, Wires. It's a song that I think I wrote that song about 2 years ago already. It was very much inspired, but I guess a lot of music that got released lately was inspired by what was happening, in the world with COVID and all that stuff. And this one was kind of inspired by what I saw was happening around me with people close to me. Not so much about myself, but someone close to me, all the stuff, you kind of went through. So the inspiration came from just watching this guy try to be as strong as he can, dealing with everything that was going on. So I wrote, the inspiration was quite strong, so the song came about fairly quickly. And then we've been jamming it in the band room for a while, and then only recently, we kind of got in the studio and recorded it, and it sounded pretty cool. I was very happy with how it came out. So
Yeah, it's a great track anyway. And what was the overall process like? Obviously you'd been playing it for a while, then jamming around, and you finally got to record.
Yeah, there were a few different versions of the song. I think it all started with the riff, the riff, and we get like the main guitar riff. And I always find it easier to write a good riff, and then I get stuck, writing the rest of the song.
Right.
So there were like a few different versions of, I think, the riff, and then the verse, and then I think I had like 3 different choruses, which I kind of liked. And then I listened back to them like a couple of weeks, and I was like, nah, it's not good anymore. Let's try something else. Until something stuck. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And then, so I kind of demoed out the whole song in my studio, just to get an idea. And, the demos it always gives you an idea, but then, I guess, 100% once you start playing it with the band, because then you start feeling the groove of the guys in the band. And then, that's where we realized it's pretty cool. So we started getting a couple of songs together. And then when I brought up the idea to start recording again, we weren't sure what we wanted to record. We definitely didn't want to start off with the whole album, because I've had some bad luck with recording an album, and then straight after the album's recorded, the band kind of breaks up.
Right.
So we decided, let's just go into the studio, choose 2 songs that we like, and then take it from there. And so I actually do have a studio in Cape Town, so I was just kind of getting the guys like their schedules, and like, let's book a weekend at my studio. And so it was quite cool, because instead of having doing the drums on their own, bass on their own, whatever, I kind of had us all set up. The drum and the bassist was in the live room, I was in the control room, all set up. I was operating the Pro Tools system, doing all the recording stuff while playing and singing and performing as well, which was very cool.
Man of many skills, huh?
Well, I mean, not many skills, just the one skill. One skill in different variations, I guess.
Yeah. And what has the reception been like? I know it's only been a week now, but what has it been like?
Well, from what I can see online, and the feedback we've got, people seem to really like it. The one review that I read today, which is very funny, because I mean, I guess you get stuck into a certain, like, not stuck, but you latch onto a certain genre of music that you like, and then all of a sudden you still feel like it's very cool, and then someone writes a review in your song and say it's very old school. Right. And it's like, it's like, wow, okay, cool. So, well, I mean, I'm going to take old school as a huge compliment. So, I think it's been very positive. I mean, I hope so. From what I could see, it's people seem to like the old school vibe.
Yeah, that's something that's really coming back around again, isn't it? That people are kind of latching on to that old school kind of sound.
Yeah, I guess if you just do this, if you do something like that for a long enough time, it'll come back and be, it'll come back full circle, and you're going to be cool again.
Yeah, true. Now, you originally formed the band 3 years ago, and you obviously had a different vocalist. Would you like to tell us the story of that, what led you to starting the band and the early days of it?
Yeah, so the guys in the band, like, we've all known each other a long time before we actually started the band. I moved to Cape Town in 2014, and then I was studying at the time, and then I met this guy called Jesse Jordan, who was he was a very well known. I mean, I listened to those guys sing when I was still in high school, so he was, when I first met him, I was a little bit starstruck because that's the dude I've been watching on television, since I was a teenager. So him and I kind of, became friends, and then him and I started to do like a little cover. Like, he's been playing all over Cape Town since he was, I don't know, I want to say 16. But somehow then him and I started playing together. So him and I have been playing together since 2014 or 15. And then through him, I kind of met Steph and Nick, who's in Atomic Drive as well. We all kind of played different gigs together here and there. And then eventually I floated the idea past Jesse, like, maybe, I've got some music lying around. And you want to see if you maybe want to sing it, try like writing some lyrics over it and see what you can do with it. And then when he came back with, I think the very first thing we wrote together is a song called My Beautiful Life, which is also on, online. When he came back with that, I was kind of blown away by what he did, because he's got a massive vocal range, and I really always like pushed him to like really hit the high notes. So when we decided, we both realized we really liked it. And then that's when we went to Steph and Nick as well, because at this point, this was 2019, I've known all of them, we've all kind of became friends. We just never actually had a project where we were all four in a band working on original music. So yeah, and then they seemed to like it as well. And we started getting, rehearsals together. We booked a show. And I don't know why we decided to do it like this. We booked our very first show. We had to play 3 hours. And I mean, as an original band, all of a sudden you need to get 3 hours worth of material going.
Yeah.
We put ourselves under enormous pressure. So we actually did add a couple of covers in there, but we managed to pull it off. And the response to our very first show was also pretty good. Well, I thought it was pretty good, although there were some technical difficulties coming from my side. And then, yeah, we shot a music video in 2019 as well for the song My Beautiful Life that we recorded. And people seem to like that as well. And then we got booked. We started playing gigs all over Somerset West, which is here in Cape Town. We started playing in Cape Town as well. We got booked to play this festival in Mozambique as well. We played this another festival also here, like in the Cape Town roundabouts in Stellenbosch. And then, yeah, came March 2020, everything shut down. So
Lovely.
we just kind of, we just started getting some momentum. And then obviously the world decided, look, the world needs a break. And then eventually, trying to get, I mean, COVID, like obviously the lockdown really made you think about what, priorities in your life and all that kind of stuff. So we all kind of had to focus on, where our income is going to come from, because obviously as musicians, a lot of musicians were hit really hard, especially in South Africa, because everything shut down. So we kind of kept quiet, and I just went, continued on writing some music and writing some ideas and stuff. And then eventually Jesse, our singer, he unfortunately left the band because he immigrated to London.
Right.
Which is, I mean, I'm very happy for him because he seems to be very happy in London, which is great. And then, we went through the audition process of trying to get a new singer, and which was also not, there was always, I don't want to describe it in a very negative way, but we just had getting the right fit was a challenge, more than a challenge than I would have hoped it would be. And then eventually, we just came to the conclusion. I went to the guys in the band. I told them, listen, let me try it. Let me try it out. And and we had a rehearsal, and I was singing. And I mean, I had to practice a lot on my own because I wrote the songs in such a way that I didn't have to sing. So the guitar riffs, I could really focus on the guitar riffs. And now all of a sudden I had to learn how to sing while playing these guitar riffs, which was a challenge on its own. But yeah, at the end of the day, we all kind of liked it, and then we started no, it's cool. And then I think last year, in the beginning of this year, that's when we decided, okay, let's start rehearsing again. Let's start getting in a jam room. And then, we liked where it was going. And then we entered the studio, and now we have the new release called Wires.
just jumping back there to January of 2020 when you released My Beautiful Life, that must have felt like some achievement, especially the reaction it got leading to you being booked for festivals and everything, and it being your first release. What did that feel like?
Yeah, it's yeah, it was a little bit overwhelming, I must say, because we also, what we did with the music video, like I've been in a couple of music videos before for other artists and stuff, but this was like my first music video where I was like, it was our music, it was our band. So again, it was a little bit overwhelming, and then people seem to like it as well, which is, you can only ever hope that people will like whatever you put out into the world, because I mean, you put your heart and soul into everything that you do, and if you get a response where people like it, that's all you could ever want. So yeah, I was over the moon. I was like telling the guys in the band, guys, we're like 2 to 3 gigs away from really exploding. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And we played some good shows. There was a very good energy in the band when things started picking up, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I could imagine. And this is kind of a tough one now, but if, the pandemic hadn't happened, where do you think the band would be now?
I don't know. Hopefully, it's difficult. I mean, so much has happened since then. Like, so much has happened, but it doesn't feel like there's this 3-year gap between now and then. I guess, if COVID didn't happen, I would have just liked to be playing regularly, releasing music. You never know,
Yeah.
Since COVID happened, I just try to think of like the next step. Because that really showed us, like, you can't, I guess, plan too far in advance, because you never know what's going to happen. Exactly. So we, for example, we got booked to play these festivals and all that stuff, and we were really looking forward to it. And then literally within a day, everything got cancelled. So, it's now at the point where, cool, let's record a song. Do we like the song? Yes, we like the song. Cool. Let's shoot a music video. Do we like the video? Yes, we like the music video. Let's release the stuff, one day, one little step at a time.
Yeah, I gotcha. And with you taking the reins on vocals, how has it changed your approach to, writing music and your overall approach to the band?
It is definitely a little bit more challenging. I always have this thing where you can hear when a guitarist plays bass, when a guitarist writes vocal melodies. You get a bassist who we can hear is a bassist, and then you get a guitarist who plays bass. And I feel the same way about a vocalist who's a vocalist, and then a guitarist who also sings. And I mean, for me personally, it's also you get set in your ways in terms of how you would approach writing a song, how you would like naturally gravitate towards a certain melody. And so I guess the challenge comes in to not, do the thing that you would normally naturally gravitate towards, because, for me personally, then I kind of lose interest in that. So it's I guess where the challenge also comes in is to not focus on the guitaring while I'm writing, lyrics, or when I'm writing a vocal melody. It needs to be separate from one another. So I guess it's more work. It's a lot more to think about. And it's not just, after you demoed it and you like what you do, then you got to learn how to sing and play it at the same time. And you got to think about more than just how you sing. I mean, you got to think about the guitaring. And it's not just that, because I do write the odd guitar solo here and there as well. So now there's also a pedal board in front of you that you got to switch buttons while trying to hit a high note and, go from a riff into a guitar solo. So it's just, but what I do know is with a lot of practice, it becomes second nature. So I've got here in my studio, I've got my pedal board set up, and, luckily I've got tracks here with drums and bass and a click track that I can practice. So I just practice a lot. And then as soon as it starts, and also one thing, and don't ask me why, because I write most of the stuff, is trying to remember all the lyrics. Right. I almost find that the most challenging thing of doing all of this, just remembering what I wrote down on a piece of paper. Yeah, it's gotten to the point where I bounced out backtracks and I listened to it in the car, and I just kind of keep like it's like learning from a book, writing a final exam, just repeating something over and over and over again until somehow it gets stuck in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun times.
Yeah, geez, you don't make things easy for yourself anyway.
No, I mean, yeah, I guess, if something is easy, like, I don't know where, I've probably read it somewhere online. If it's easy to do, then I guess it's not, worth doing or something like that.
Yeah. The hardest things are the ones that are worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
at this stage, we'll dive into your own personal history when it comes to music. Now, if you can you remember your earliest musical memory?
Absolutely. When I was, and I mean, I still listen to this album to this day a lot. There were two, I think I was like 6 years old or 5 years old. No, not even 6. I was 5. And there were two albums that I remember as a kid I latched onto. And the one was this kids, just a normal kids, like, baby music, whatever, that plays children's music. And the other one was Keep the Faith by Bon Jovi.
Right.
My dad bought it for himself, and for some reason I really liked what I was hearing as a 5-year-old, what was going on in that album. There's this one song specifically that's called Blame It on the Love of Rock and Roll, that whenever my dad would ask me, what do you want to listen to? It's either the kids album or Blame It on the Love for Rock and Roll by Bon Jovi. So yeah, that's as far as I can remember, that's the first that I can remember, like, musical experience that I really, really loved. And to this day, that album specifically by Bon Jovi is incredible. And since I moved into a recording studio and I started recording bands and producing all this stuff, I really focus on producers and engineers on all these albums, and you get the legends like Bob Rock, Chris Cornell, all these guys. And then so now I go back to albums I listened to as a kid and I check like who produced it, who did what. And then I saw Bob Rock was the producer on that album. I was like, well, no wonder it sounds so good. If that's the guy who did Metallica's Black Album and all that stuff, and he's the same dude who did this, and then of course I'm going to love it.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And growing up, did you grow up in a very musical household? Was there always music being played?
Yeah, so my musical talent comes straight from my mom. She's a brilliant singer. She can like proper opera music. She's a good opera singer. Yeah. So that all comes from my mom, and so obviously, whenever I hear a song that I like, at the time my ear hasn't developed to such a point where I could listen to a song and figure it out, but my mom could. So all these Bon Jovi songs that I wanted to play on the guitar, because when I started playing guitar, I think I was 14 years old when I realized, like, hey, I like playing guitar. But now I just didn't want to play the traditional songs that was in whatever book I was, playing off. I wanted to play Bon Jovi. So I just took all these songs to my mom, and she had to like get out a keyboard and work out all the chords and stuff. So so this is this. I could just sit in the living room and play Bon Jovi songs. Yeah, that was about, as long as it was Bon Jovi in the early days, then I didn't care about the rest.
Yeah, your poor mother having to work out all them songs for you.
No, I mean, look, when she's busy and whatever she was, there were sometimes she said, no, listen, I'm busy. You're going to have to wait with your Bon Jovi song, because as soon as I'm done playing the one, I want the next one. And she didn't always have the time to show me every Bon Jovi song.
And I have to ask, over the years, have you got the chance to see Bon Jovi in concert?
No, unfortunately not. So the thing is, I come from a country called Namibia. It's like South Africa's neighboring country. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of international acts that plays in Namibia. So if we wanted to see international acts in South Africa, we had to drive like 3,000 kilometers to come.
Oh my God.
So yeah. So because I know Bon Jovi was in South Africa, I can't remember what year they were here. But unfortunately, I missed a lot of the big acts that were here. I know Linkin Park, I missed that as well. But then at least there are a couple that I did see, which was, pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And the music you were exposed to growing up then, how do you think that has molded you as a musician now?
It's very interesting, because before, like, from like 6 years old till about 13 years old, or or 11 or whatever, I was still kind of figuring out what I liked. So whatever was played around me, I kind of also liked that. So for some reason, not for some reason, because they are brilliant, I really liked ABBA as a kid. I listened to a lot of ABBA. Because, I mean, even as a grown-up today, if you can listen to the music, you know, you can say it's pop music, but if you try to analyze what they do and how they wrote the music, it is genius in its own.
Yeah.
And then when I started playing the guitar, that's when I really started focusing on, you know, I discovered Guns N' Roses, short story, because this also kind of, like, Guns N' Roses was a huge inspiration, like, to this day. I always knew who they were, but I never really paid attention to, you know, what they did. And then I bought, when they released that Greatest Hits album in 2004, for some reason I decided to buy that. And I started listening to it, and when Paradise City came on, I think it was like track number 2 or 3 on the CD, when that song started playing, I mean, I knew the song. I was like, oh, it's these guys. And then so when I started getting into Guns N' Roses, then soon after I discovered AC/DC's Back in Black, which was also, you know, Shoot to Thrill is, especially that one stands out. And then also, I used to watch a lot of VH1 as a kid, and they always had these cool, you know, like, documentaries behind the music, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, all this stuff. And I saw a live performance of them playing Rock and Roll and Noise Pollution, and I just, you know, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The groove of that song and everything about that song was so cool. So obviously AC/DC, Bon Jovi, and Guns N' Roses was very instrumental in my development of how I, you know, what I listened to, and how, because this was also at the same time I started playing guitar. And then let me try. Oh yeah, and then I got introduced to Mr. Tom Morello.
Right.
And this was not actually through Rage Against the Machine. This was through the first Audioslave album.
Oh.
And this was with Chris Cornell. So not only did I discover Tom Morello, I heard this random dude called Chris Cornell. And that also played a big part. That first album was massive. And then as I started growing older, I started getting into more of the heavier stuff. I mean, when I say heavy, you know, some kid introduced me to System of a Down's Toxicity, which was like, what the hell is this? You know, and then I discovered Slipknot eventually. So I started, like, really liking the heavier stuff as well. And then as a teenager, like 18 through 22, you know, I tried to sound like Slipknot. And then I realized, you know what, it's cool, but it's maybe not so much. I don't want to sound like Slipknot anymore. So I kind of started developing whatever I feel like is my own sound these days.
I gotcha.
But yeah.
I love that kind of musical journey though, as you're growing up. You know, you can almost, with a lot of people, you could almost start with one band, and you could almost, you know, almost say which one would be next and next and next. It's like a stepping stone to, you know, where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing because, like, if you think about it, Guns N' Roses, AC/DC, and Bon Jovi, these were bands. It's kind of like before it's an era before me. You know, it's a generation before me. But for some reason, I don't know, people just latch onto that stuff. You know, it stood the test of time, and you know, there's so many people that still reference. You know, I mean, Back in Black is still, people still go on about that. Yeah. And it was like 42 years now, and it still sounds good. I mean, what those guys were able to do on that album, and same with Guns N' Roses. I listened to the Use Your Illusions albums the other day again, and I mean, now that I'm a grown up and, you know, I'm working in a recording studio, I listen to it with a new perspective. I listen to the production as well, and you know, I go into all the detail, and yes, the quality they got, like, everything about it is just so good. The production, the recordings, the way they play, the tones, the way Axl sang the songs, you know, everything. It's just so good. So after 20, I don't know how many years I've been listening to it, I still find new things within those recordings that I can, like, wow, this is so good, you know, which is cool.
It is. It's very cool. I'm always kind of surprised with Guns N' Roses though, with you know, the antics and everything they used to get up to back then. It's actually surprising that they were as good as they were. and were able to do what they did, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know how you do it. I mean, like, these days when I have to go on stage, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing myself to Guns N' Roses in any way. I'm just, I will never be able to do that. I'm just comparing, like, if I had to go on stage, I need to be focused, I need to think about what I do. But those guys, I don't know, they yeah, maybe they're just naturally that good that they can do whatever they want and they will still be very, very good.
Maybe.
Yeah, who knows? Because I was watching this interesting thing. There's also another album that I always forget to mention it, but it's still also an album of mine that I listen to a lot, which I also think is very good. It's when the guys from Guns N' Roses, Slash, Duff, and Matt Sorum formed Velvet Revolver, and they recorded that first album with Fall to Pieces on and Slither, and I mean, yeah, there's just the energy about that album that I don't know, it's out of this world. That one specifically as well. And I was watching this interview Slash that when he mentioned when they were mastering that album, they all kind of fell off the wagon a bit because by this time they were all sober.
Yeah.
And then as they were finishing the album, they realized like they really liked it. And Slash said he saw a bottle of Jack Daniels in the studio, and it's like, well, I can handle this. And then they all kind of fell off the wagon a little bit there. Yeah, funny story.
Yeah. And what is the local music scene like in Cape Town now? Is it very vibrant in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I must say it's obviously been quiet, due to lockdown and everything. But it's become very, very active again. There's like, how do I put this? I mean, we're playing our first show next weekend, for the first one in a couple of years now. The first one since lockdown. So I'll obviously, get the energy of it a little bit better next weekend. But I've been to a couple shows already, and yes, people seem to be really appreciating the fact that they can go see bands live again. And I follow a couple of venues, on the socials and all that stuff, and I can just see there's, every weekend there's bands lined up to play here and play there, and everything. So you can literally just choose where you want to go, and you can watch a good rock band or punk band or whatever, do the thing. Yeah, which is cool. I mean, it's good. We were shown what we would lose if that gets taken away. So I think everyone just appreciates it a little bit more now.
Yeah, definitely. It's like heaven for music lovers nowadays.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, and and I was also surprised because when we used to play a lot, we didn't play in Cape Town itself that often. We kind of played the surrounding areas a little bit more. So I actually went out to watch a friend of mine's band that I produced a while back at a couple of venues here in Cape Town. And geez, and I will say this, and I'm sorry, like the quality of these venues is really, really incredible. Yeah, and the bands sound really, really good. Like these Oaks, when you watch these Oaks play, you kind of think to yourself, yes, do we sound like that? Like, maybe I should go chat to the Oaks in the band. I feel like we should be a little bit better if we were to compete with the guys in front of us. Yeah, no, it's good. It sounds good, and the bands that I've watched, yeah, they're doing some good, cool things.
Yeah, it almost, I've spoken to a lot of musicians now from South Africa, and sometimes it kind of reminds me of almost, the LA scene back in the 80s when there was so many good bands all playing at the same time,
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some I've watched a couple of shows in the last, like this year, and yes, there's been some bands that they make you question yourself as a musician.
Yeah.
They kind of bring out the insecurities, as a musician, like, wow, should I still be doing this if these guys are doing this, But
yeah. Well, that's the thing, it can only make you better as well,
Yeah, I mean, you hope so. You hope so, yeah.
And I always ask now at this stage, as a concert goer, I know you said you haven't been to a whole lot, but what concerts do you think have made you?
Um, there's, I mean, like, there's a couple of concerts that stood out to me over the years that I've been at, and it wasn't necessarily the bands that was headlining; it was the bands that were opening. And there's this one friend of mine. He's a drummer. He play when Metallica came down to South Africa in 2013. We went to watch them in Joburg, and there were these two local South African bands who opened for them. It was I hope I remember correctly, it was Chromium and Pestroy. Now, this friend of mine, Dylan, he played in this band called Pestroy, and when they played, they were the band just before Metallica, and when they played, I was standing there, and I could not believe what I was seeing. They were so good. It's, and these are the ones that stuck with me. Like, Metallica was great. Obviously, it's Metallica. But when those guys played, because I've never heard of them, first of all, because I didn't live in South Africa at the time, so I didn't know who these guys were. But when they started playing, and I tell my friend Dylan that every time I see him, it's like, dude, that show you played. And I only met him years after. And again, also when I met him for the first time, I was also a little bit starstruck because that's the drummer for that band that played, with Metallica.
Yeah.
So that was one that really stuck with me in terms of how, I would like to be perceived from the audience perspective when I'm on stage, is that sort of professionalism and how tight that band was, when they played that show. And then the other one that also stuck out for me personally, and this is not a local band, this is an international band, but that was when Foo Fighters came down to South Africa. So we went to watch them here in Cape Town, and the Kaiser Chiefs opened for them.
Ah, yeah.
And I obviously know who they are because I've listened to their music when I was in high school a lot. But when they started playing, it's also, I couldn't keep my mouth closed. It's just the front man. I don't know his name. I can't remember his name, but the front man, he was mesmerizing. And again, same like Foo Fighters. They were brilliant. It was Foo Fighters. I knew what I was going to get when I watched these guys, but when Kaiser Chiefs played, I just couldn't believe. I mean, there was one point where he was like on the sound booth scaffolding at the back. He was literally on the roof singing from there, and then he kind of jumped off and he ran, and he was like, I just couldn't believe he didn't get seriously injured on that show.
Yeah.
But so those two shows really stuck with me, and if I can one day, when I'm a grown man, play a show and at least have some sort of experience from someone in the crowd that I had with these shows, then I would be a very happy man.
Yeah, definitely. They sound like some absolutely excellent gigs now, especially Kaiser Chiefs with Foo Fighters.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's I can talk about that concert for hours. I mean, that was just that was such a good concert, and they were obviously promoting the album they released then. And there was this one song, I can't remember the name, but he went this like ha 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 kind of like mocking kind of laugh as the chorus. And he was now, as the entertainer that he was, there was a security guy obviously standing, I don't know, like, the security standing in front of the stage, and he was kind of like, ha ha ha, mocking this, but, not being nasty or anything. But yes, it was just the whole performance I was so mesmerized with what the guy was doing. And then Foo Fighters started playing, and I was like, how can this get any better?
Oh, it sounds like the ultimate. I've seen Foo Fighters myself as well, and they're right up there. They're the best that you can get.
Yeah. I will say this. The three, I've seen 4 big international acts. It was Metallica in 2013. I saw Deftones in 2013 as well. Yeah. But that was at the end of a festival. So unfortunately, I mean, I was there, but it was the end of a 3-day festival. So let's just say I was very tired.
You were there, but you weren't fully there.
Yeah, I know I was at the Deftones concert, and I know I heard him scream a bunch of times, but yeah. And then I actually saw Guns N' Roses when they played in South Africa as well.
Oh, really?
2000, when was this? 2017 2018 or 17 they were here. Which was just a bucket list item for me. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And then obviously Foo Fighters. And yeah, Foo Fighters were like Dave Grohl. He brings so the energy he brings. Yeah, they are very good. And then obviously Kaiser Chiefs.
Yeah, of course. I have to ask, I seen Guns N' Roses this year, back in the summer, for the first time, and like you, it was a bucket list. But
yeah,
what did you think of their performance at that stage?
I thought it was good. It was a very long set. They played. I don't know if it was the same for the concert you went to, but they played like a 3-hour set.
Yeah.
And which is great because they played songs like Coma and like songs that weren't hits, let's just call it like that. And it was great to see these songs. I mean, first of all, it was great to see them live, but it was also great to hear them play these songs. I thought it was, it was incredible. There was this one specific point, especially when Axl Rose started playing November Rain. I mean, he was just sitting behind this piano with a smile on his face, and he just started playing Piano Rain. And I mean, it was, I really enjoyed it. It's good. Guns N' Roses, yeah, and especially cool with Slash and Duff back in the band as well. And
exactly,
Dizzy Reed being there since the 90s. It's
yeah. I absolutely loved it now, but at the time there was a lot of people in the days after it saying they should retire and Axl doesn't have the voice and everything. But I was I've said it before, I was of the opinion of, you're getting to see Guns N' Roses. This is a band that probably should have died in the late 80s,
Yeah. Your voice changes over the years. It's inevitable. I don't know if you saw when Axl was singing for AC/DC.
Yeah.
For the people, I was also there. I saw some videos online on YouTube where I heard them. This was before Slash and Duff came back to the band, when he was doing this residency in Las Vegas or wherever, where the vocals were also not great. And then all of a sudden he joins AC/DC, and then he starts singing these songs. I mean, I don't know if you do yourself a favor and just go listen to some live clips of him singing Shook Me All Night Long and all that stuff. It is incredible. I mean, I could not believe the guy still got that amount of vocal power and everything. I mean, I'm pretty sure no one else would be able to do it except him and Brian Johnson. And I also think, and this is just my opinion, and look, I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with touring and all this stuff and playing, 200 shows a year on the road. But I guess if you're playing 3-hour sets every second night, you gotta sing in such a way that you can preserve your voice. You can't push it to the limit for 3 hours, twice a week.
Yeah, it'd take its toll.
Yeah, I do think there is. I mean, you must look after your instrument, I guess. But I thought it was great. I mean, I'm never going to hear November Rain being played by Axl Rose probably ever again live from the dude. So yeah, I was very, very happy.
Yeah, I was the exact same now. And I have a very good question for you now. What do you think goes into being a great frontman? Because you're after stepping into that role now, what do you think goes into, captivating the audience?
Oh, can I say I'll let you know once I figure that out?
Right.
I don't know. It's difficult for me to say, because you can say I'm a frontman, but I do believe a frontman is a frontman. Because I won't say limited, but I've got a guitar in front of me, which kind of limits me to a certain position on stage because the mic is on a mic stand and stuff. Whereas I do think a front man needs to be free to, communicate with the crowd in such a way that it gets to a, an emotional level. And I do think if you have, I don't know, just for example, I think one of the, and I mean, this might be because this is kind of the kind of music I also listened to when I was growing up. Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance. I mean, what I really like about this dude is like he not impersonates, but he creates these characters and he lives himself into this character on stage. And you're so captivated by the presence of what he presents on stage, and that character evolves with the music. It goes into the music, it goes into the vocal performance. And I think that is, you'll never get bored watching that.
No, you wouldn't.
It's the same with, for me personally as well, Axl Rose, especially in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, there's a certain attitude about him that, he seems larger than life, I mean, he's this presence that you just captures you. And I think, I don't know, that's what you want to see. I mean, you want to be captured by this presence on stage that takes you places within the music and within the performance and within the experience. And coming back to Kaiser Chiefs again, this is what the singer of Kaiser Chiefs did for me on that day. It's just he was this larger than life figure that was just everywhere within this experience, within this performance that they did. Which, yeah, it is. I feel like for me they were some of the best frontmen I've ever seen. So I don't know. I mean, then you also get a guy like Matt Bellamy from Muse. I mean, he plays, I don't even know how many instruments he plays on stage. but then he still manages to also capture you with the incredible like vocal performances that he does. And I mean, I think the most amazing thing about that guy is the fact that he plays all this stuff on the guitar and still does all these vocal things. And like that's what makes him for me incredible, is the fact that, he gives you this performance of all this technical brilliance and he makes it look so easy. It's just so effortless for him. And then, he jumps around and he runs around and he's also a standout. So I don't know. Once I figure out how to be what I just described, then I'll let you know.
Right. And the next one, so out of gigs that you've played, is there any that you would revisit over and over again? Any in your mind that were absolutely spot on, perfect?
I don't know if the specific one that I'm going to talk about is I don't even know if we were good or not. But this was in 2000 and I think it was 2012. I was still living in Namibia at the time, and then I don't know if you know the British rock band Smokey.
Yeah.
So they toured Namibia, and for some reason, I don't know how this happened, we got asked to open for them. And now this is not a band, this is just my friend and I on 2 acoustic guitars. So we got asked to open, for Smokey in this kind of stadium, like the Vinter National, whatever, like sports stadium. I was like 22 at the time, 23. So preparation wasn't really a thing for me at the time.
Right.
And we were standing backstage about to go on, and my friend and I, we were kind of discussing about what we should play, like a set list, and we were going through all these songs. Like eventually we was like, you know what, let's just go on stage and we'll figure this out.
Right.
And we went on, and there was like 10,000 people in front of us. And we just like, again, I don't know whether we were any good or not. But we sure had a lot of fun. And the people seem to clap hands afterwards, so I'm guessing they also enjoyed it. But that's one of the I will always remember because of like the odd way we ended up on that stage. And it's Smokey. You grow up with Smokey songs. Like some of my first memories were Smokey songs. So it was quite an experience.
Oh, it sounds like the absolute definition of winging it.
Yeah, and I mean, you wouldn't catch me doing that these days. If someone were to ask me even just to play a normal show, I would sit in the studio and I would work out the timing of each song. The prepare, like I would almost over prepare for this. Whereas 10 years ago, We were literally standing backstage 10 minutes before we go on to open for Smokey. It's like, you know what? Let's go on stage and we'll figure it out.
Oh my God. Oh, and you know what? It's probably one of them things where that was probably one of the most fun experiences ever, you know?
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is I don't have any pictures of that show. I think there's like someone who was in the crowd took pictures of us on the big screen. So, and that's like the only picture I have of that show is this like very blurry kind of picture of myself and this friend of mine on the big screen on the side of the stage. I just wish I had more pictures of that show. You would think that a show of that caliber, you would have pictures of it, but I actually don't. But yeah, I can remember that was such a fun experience. And then obviously when Smokey came on, we obviously went and watched them, and they were just brilliant. I'm a sucker for a good vocal harmony, and these guys, when everyone in the band can do vocal harmonies, that's just perfect. I mean, I can sit and listen to that all day.
Not to get too negative now, but we'll flip it around. What would you say is the worst gig experience you've had, and how did you deal with it?
I mean, obviously, I guess every musician will always tell you they've had some weird experience on stage, but I think probably the worst one for me personally was one when Atomic Drive, when we played our first show, that one where we had to do like the 3-hour, when we had to do this 3-hour set, and we've been together as a band for like 2 months. So what happened at this one, our very first show, we played in the small venue that got booked out for us because, this is our first show, and people kind of who knew us from the circuit came to see what was going on. So I brought my 2 guitars, but when I wanted to restring these guitars before the show, I couldn't find my bag with my new strings in it. So I was like, okay, I've got 2 guitars, I'm going to go. And then eventually the first guitar I play and I break a string, it's like, okay, cool, let's go to the other one. And I play like 2 or 3 songs, and then I break a string on that as well. This is a mid-performance.
Oh, man.
And then I realized my bag with the strings are at the sound desk, where a friend of mine was doing the sound for us. But now, ironically, at the time I went through the crowd to get the sound back, he wasn't there. And when I grabbed the bag, I knocked the PA, like the mixing desk, down from the table.
Oh my God.
Don't ask me how that happened. And it was just chaos. It was feedback. I don't even know what broke from the PA system, but it was just chaos. Like me trying to hold the desk in my hand while I've got this bag, and like everything's just falling apart, and the band was standing on stage looking at me, not knowing what was going on. And then eventually, when there was like so much feedback over the PA system, I managed to bring the master faders down. But now you must see this whole venue just looking at me mid-performance, standing with a bag and a desk in my hand.
Oh.
And then eventually, when our friend, the sound guy, when he came back, he had to pretty much re-sound check the whole thing, because I think I broke like a crossover between the top speakers and the subs. So he kind of had to remix us. I don't know what he did, but we were basically just standing on stage there for like 10 minutes, while he figured out what I did to the sound system. And then after that, we still had to play for like an hour and a half. So yeah, and it was good. That was our very first show. I was going all about now this new band. We are, we just shot this music video, we did this and we did this, and then first gig I broke the PA system.
Oh, you do know you're supposed to do your sound check before you play, not in the middle of it, yeah?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're also not supposed to lose your guitar strings when you, it's, I think it was just meant to happen. Like,
yeah.
I brought 2 guitars, I brought a whole bag full of strings, and I lost the bag of strings, and then I just like went for it, and then I broke everything.
If it's going to go wrong, everything is going to go wrong, huh?
Someone actually still went onto Facebook and gave us a good review, so yeah, I see that as a win.
yeah, and it made for a pretty great memory.
yeah, it's a funny story about a guitarist trying to be professional.
yeah, and the next one then. In, say, 30, 40 years' time, when you're at the end of your career, what needs to happen for you to look back and feel like you achieved everything you wanted to achieve?
Oh, I don't know if that's possible. Like, as I guess, as a musician, as a guitar player, or whatever, you always feel like you can be better, at everything you do. So it's difficult for me to put myself in a scenario where I have to stop it now, because I'm always just going to try something else. But I guess if I can, like in 30 years or whatever, when it's coming to an end, if I can just, because these songs, not just the songs, but the recordings as well, like these are all very special to me because I record all the songs, I mix them, I master them. If I can listen back in 30 years from now, listen back and sit there, it's like, wow, this sounds pretty good. If the mix can still sound good in 30 years time, like, the same way Back in Black still sounds good. If I can sit back and listen one day and, listen to these mixes I did 30 years ago, and do the old head nod, is like, yeah, it holds up. Then then I'll be happy. And I mean, if my guitar tone and my vocals, doesn't sound horrible to me in 30 years time, then I think I'll be pretty satisfied. Yeah. It's difficult. I guess also, I think it's very important that you like what you do, like what you put out there. So, I guess if I listen back to the music, I do need to enjoy the music, because if I don't enjoy music, then I shouldn't be doing it. I think first and foremost, I need to like it. And if I can sit in 30 years time and not cringe at a lyric that I wrote or whatever, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Because I actually do listen to some older stuff I recorded about 10 years ago, and the thing that cringes me out the most is the lyrics.
Really?
I was 19 at the time. I was just an angry kid. Yeah. And I listened to the lyrics like, oh my Lord, what was I, why?
Oh. A lot of people are like that, though. I even notice a lot of musicians won't listen back to themselves at all once they've laid down the track.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me it's a little it's difficult, especially because they say one of the toughest things you can ever do is record and mix your own vocals. And it is very difficult because you as a singer, I mean, and I'm not calling myself a singer, I just happen to be in a position where I have to sing. But it kind of, you'll never, I guess, like the way your own voice sounds. I watched an interview they did with Rob Halford the other day, and he also, I mean, he just got inducted into the Rock Hall of Fame, and he said, like, he still can't listen to himself. So I guess, and that's this guy saying it.
Yeah.
So I guess there's always, you'll never like how you sound, but especially with me mixing this stuff, I mean, you got to listen beyond that. So I try not to focus. I try to focus on the balance of everything. Does the balance make sense, the energy wise? Because if you focus on one thing, if I focus on one thing within the mix, I'm going to hear something that I don't like. I'm going to hear a snare drum that I would want to go back and remix. So, So if and it's luckily with Wires now that it's out, I cannot go remix it because I've listened to it a few times. Like, maybe the snare drum needs to come down a little bit in this section. But it's, I guess it's always difficult listening back. But at the end of the day, I think if you get used to it, and the way it sounds, well, it's just for me personally, I try, I get to a point where I really enjoy it, because if the mix sounds good, you get your solid bass and everything sits well and there's definition, but it's tight, and it becomes a fun listening experience, not so much about music, but also about the mixing and the mastering. And, it's this whole thing that I just really enjoy.
Yeah, I get you. And I sometimes ask, when you're writing a song, can you tell it's going to be a hit? But since you have that extra step, you're mixing, mastering as well, you have more contact with the song. Can you tell whether it's going to be a hit or whether it's going to resonate with people?
Well, I don't know. No, I mean, sometimes when I think I've got something good, people won't react to it, or it's difficult to say. All I can do is just make sure what I put out in the world sounds as good as I can possibly get it. Whether, I can think this is very good or whatever, but it's difficult to say. Like, I guess everyone's different, so everyone will resonate to something differently.
True.
So it's impossible to say. I mean, you can always just hope for the best. Like the song we're going to release next, hopefully early next year. It's definitely a personal favorite of mine. Not just because I feel like this is just me personally. I feel like it's a very strong melody line, but also I think the lyrics that I wrote there is also very powerful because the inspiration was a very surreal moment I had in my life. So I resonate with that song a lot when I hear it and when I mixed it and when we recorded it and stuff. But that's just my experience with it. It doesn't mean like anyone else is going to feel the same way. So I feel like it's impossible to know. I can only try that I like it and then make it sound as good as I possibly can. And then once it goes out in the world, it's kind of out of my hands. You can just hope for the best. You know, and if people can somehow relate to whatever message you're putting out there, then I guess that's just a bonus. But yeah, I don't know. If it sounds good to me, then I'm happy.
Right. And what do you think sets you guys apart from other rock bands?
I don't know. Sure. No, we're getting to the tough questions now. I don't know. It's I like to think over the years. I like to think that over the years I've developed a sound to how I sound. Because obviously I've got a certain way of playing, I've got a certain way of singing, I've got a certain way of, think about melodies. It even goes as far as I've got a certain way of how I hold the plectrum in my hand when I'm playing the guitar that gives the guitar a different sound. There's all these differences. So I guess what sets us apart from other bands and what sets other bands apart from us is the individuals that are in the band. Because I do believe that everyone's got their own unique sound. And especially if you've got 3 or 4 guys in a band and somehow they can make all their unique sounds work together, then you've got something very unique. So I guess that's what I would think would make us different, is because it's a natural kind of sound that you've developed over years of your brain developing and your technique developing, and you're developing as a human and how you experience life. So yeah, and I can only hope for the uniqueness of what we are is good. It's not terrible. So yeah, who knows?
No, good answer. It's you're right though. It's that individuality. Because nobody has had the same experiences as you. No one plays music like you or hears music like you. So, you're obviously going to be set apart from other people.
Yeah. I mean, and not just that. I mean, even if 2 human beings experience the exact same thing, they're going to react differently to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always like, that's why I think every band out there that's, putting the effort in will sound unique and different from each other, because that's just the way they process what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I can come up with a good guitar riff and, the drums makes you want to jump and the guitar riff makes you want to headbang and, start a mosh pit or whatever. And, the chorus melody line makes you want to sing from the top of your lungs, then yeah, that's all you can ask for, all you can hope for. And if that makes you unique from other bands, then yeah, I guess that's what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Now we'll go to an easier question, hopefully easier. What are your future plans?
Well, at the moment, so obviously we focus a lot on the release of the song, and it's been quite a nice experience with the song coming out. So now we're in the process of gearing up to start playing live again. Like I said earlier, we're playing our first show in I think like 2 years next weekend, and then it's just getting back into the studio. So we're going to gear up for another release. As I said, we recorded 2 songs earlier this year, so we're going to gear up for the second release, hopefully early next year. And then, get back into the studio because we've got some new songs already written, and then once we've got enough songs written and recorded and stuff, there's no rush. But once we've got enough, we'll put out an album,
Yeah.
And then, throughout this period, like there's no time frame in terms of what we're going to do when. It's just, we're going to record and we're going to play live and we're going to release some music. Yeah. So that's the plan.
Brilliant.
Just kind of get the wheel rolling again because, yeah, it was like a 2-year gap there. So, we just want to get going again. So taking it one step at a time, but yeah, very excited about this song that just came out. And I'm also very excited about the next one we're going to release, which I think is like, I like it.
I can't wait to hear it. This one is absolutely brilliant anyway.
Thanks so much.
So I can't wait to hear the next one.
Yeah, it's a little bit of it's not as jumpy as this one. It's no, but it's you're gonna hear it when it comes out, hopefully. So then we can talk about that one.
Perfect. Right, we'll move on to the last couple of questions. So everybody gets these, I'm afraid. So you can't get off the podcast till you answer.
No worries.
If you could see any performer from history in concert for one night only, who would it be?
Rage Against the Machine.
Good answer. Good answer.
I think that's one that must be an experience on its own. Yeah, Rage Against the Machine.
Definitely. And if you had to spend 24 hours locked in a room with any musician from history, who would it be?
That old saying, never meet your heroes.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, if I were forced to spend time with a musician, it will probably have to be Slash.
Right.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, he's just shaped so much of my life with his music. I mean, yeah, and he also seems like a very laid back, down to earth human being. So it would be interesting to just sit down with him and tell stories and hopefully give me one of his Les Pauls.
Wouldn't be too bad.
Or at least just sell it to me for a good price.
Yeah. I was going to say though, he's one of them legendary musicians though that doesn't seem to have an ego about himself.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've watched almost everything there is to watch that he's ever brought out, in terms of interviews and documentaries and all these things. I've seen him live twice, and yeah, he just seems like the most down to earth guy in the world. He just wants to tour, and yeah, he seems like he seems like a very humble human being. Yeah,
he does. And the last one, so what song would appear on the soundtrack to your life?
Yeah, I don't know. That's I always ask these questions to myself. What if someone asked me, what's your favorite album? What's your favorite song? What's this? And then there's just so much music that I listen to. It's so difficult to put, to point out one specific song. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. I'm actually looking at my Spotify, my library, seeing what I've been listening to recently just to get an idea. But it's like, I mean, we go here from the Dillinger Escape Plan to Alter Bridge to Red Hot Chili Peppers. I have no idea. I'll get back to you on that one. I mean,
yeah. It's one of them questions where, like, next week you'll be like, damn it, I should have said that one.
Yeah, I should have said that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, oh, yeah, well, actually, no, I actually do have an answer for you, which goes back to the Bon Jovi album that I listened to when I was 5 years old. Blame It on the Love of Rock and Roll.
Good one.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good answer.
Yeah, I think that one has to appear on it.
Yeah. I think "Blame It on the Love of Rock and Roll" was the last song on "Keep the Faith." Yeah, and it's good, and I like to think it all started with that song, and I'm still listening to it. So yeah.
Well, then it has to be that one. So
yeah, I feel good about that answer.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. And if you're interested in signing up the Band Builder Academy, use the link in the show notes below and enter the code CONCERTS and you'll receive 10% off. So, until next time, keep rocking. Hey, what are you guys still doing here? The show's over. It's over. You can go home. Go on. We'll see you next time. We'll be here. Bye.